Well, hello, everybody. It is so nice to be talking to you. And thanks for joining Pan Macmillan. I'm Jenny Crwys-Williams, and I'm kind of going to facilitate it. I'll probably forget things and you'll remind me, but it doesn't matter because we've got Angela Makholwa and we're talking about her latest novel, and it's called Critical But Stable. And you are going to love it because I have. And now I've read it almost 3 times, sort of 2.5 times, because she's in demand. She is in demand. But just a few housekeeping things before we begin. I'm not telling you, as we normally do when we're face to face, to turn off your cell phones. That's old. That's just so old. I've just got to remind you that we can't hear you, so you can burble on amongst yourselves. We are going to be interacting, though, using the chat and Q&A functions, and I hope that works for you. So we're going to start with our chat, which I can't wait to get involved in. Angela and I have been having a really good conversation before you tuned in. And then we're going to take some questions. So you can just send by using the Q&A function. And you can also send messages, polite ones, please, and comments using the chat functions. And I mean, I do love interaction. I really do. And just keep in mind as well that virtual and physical bookstores are wide open. And so you can visit exclusive books, CNA, bargain books, and a couple of indie bookshops like Bridge Books. I phoned them a little bit earlier on and I said, you are stocking Angela Makholwa, aren't you? He said, do me a favor. So yeah, they're in Commissioner Street. And of course, Love Books in Joburg in Melville, and you'll fall in love with it if you haven't been there before. The Book Lounge, of course, in Cape Town reigns supreme. And of course, you can go to Take a Lot or you can go to Loot. In other words, shop around if you want to. And you can also get the ebook on Amazon Kindle and Snaplify or on Kobo. And Pan will also post the links to where to buy during the chat. So we've got a house elf who's working really hard, and she's going to be doing all the hard work. Angela and I are just going to drink wine and just have a conversation. But you will get an email tomorrow with a link to the recording and all the details to buy your copy. And that's not all, but it nearly is. 3 of you will win a signed copy of the book, so please stay listening. And I'll announce the winners at the end of the launch. And right now it's time for Angela Makholwa, and of course her latest book. If you haven't seen the cover, this is what it looks like. And of course, yes, you are going to be seeing it again and again and again and again. And it is the prettiest cover because the pink and the gold are just absolutely fabulous. So some background on Angela, because that's what we do when we've got a superstar. This book is Angela's 5th novel, but her very first one was Red Ink. And it's really interesting what people have said about some of these books, and we'll be talking about that. Then came The 30th Candle, and I think that all of the books have sold well. Black Widow Society. I've heard people gossiping about Black Widow Society and saying, would you? Could you? I don't know. I didn't hear the answers, but you probably could. And then the novel that stormed its way into the shelves with international attention, and that was The Blessed Girl. And if you didn't double yourselves up with laughing, then nothing is going to make you laugh. So we're going to be talking about that, of course, in a couple of seconds. And her publishers, to my astonishment, have described her as a writer of gripping psychological thrillers. But I think the best description of Angela as a hugely entertaining and shrewd writer. I think she's incredibly shrewd, with an unerring comedic eye for the fun, the foibles and the sexual misadventures of modern women. And I just think she's got a gift. And every now and then a crime happens. It could be a murder, it could be a robbery, or maybe both. You just don't know, because she throws the clues out very, very early on. Angela Makholwa, welcome.
Wow, what a welcome. Thank you, Jenny. And welcome to everyone who's joined us. Thank you so much.
Well, yes, and we were absolutely delighted at everybody who is listening and watching and getting involved as well. But I just want to ask you a question, and it hinges on something that we were talking about a short while ago. And my question to you is, why thrillers? You were looking at my bookshelves behind me.
Yes,
And
I
you
was
were
looking at
saying,
bookshelves and I was asking you what it is that you're reading, because I can't actually see from where I'm sitting. And
good.
then we got into the topic of nonfiction. There's a lot of nonfiction there. And then I shared with you, I confess that sometimes I actually feel like my literature, the literature that I devour with passion, I feel like it's not highbrow enough to mention in certain circles, because I love thrillers. I think about 60% or 50% of my bookshelf is layered with thrillers. And we were talking about how so many women these days lately are writing crime thrillers. They're writing domestic thrillers, what's called domestic thrillers. And I was talking about how when you place fear within a familiar environment, like a home environment, it's just so much more tangible, because the sense of something threatening being within close quarters, I feel is just much more potent in keeping you glued to the pages as a writer. And as a reader, so that's just me. So we're just discussing how literature is evolving so much, and how women are now even bold enough to write crime without even thinking about writing under a male pen name, which was a thing in the past. So I just love how the scene is evolving so much.
Well, it's interesting because you're talking about basically domestic thrillers, and I was showing you this book that I can't wait to get my hands on. This by Ruth Ware, and it's a story of a chalet in the Alps, I think it is, and there is snow all around, and then suddenly the party sort of disintegrates a little bit because the snow comes down so much they can't get out, and that's what Agatha used to do.
Somebody posted about it on the Good Book Appreciation Society very recently, and we had a whole
Yes.
discussion about it. Yes.
So, but that's what Agatha Christie used to do. So you were either on a train and you couldn't get off, or you were in domestic.
Midnight Express. What was it? It was, yes.
Murdoch or
Express,
Express.
yes.
She loved domestic thrillers, and she made her name. And Sophie Hannah, as a female writer in England, she's written the new Agatha Christie books with permission from the family, the Christie family. But they are exactly the same. They're in confined spaces, and it works, and it works incredibly well. So we're both fans of crime, and it's good fun. And I love the fact that your book has come out now, because traditionally at the end of the year, you get books on ghost stories and you get books on crime. And I much prefer books on crime. Ghost stories is Dickens and Scrooge and the Ghost of Christmas Present and the Ghost of Christmas Past and everything. But and they're absolutely brilliant. But I want to talk to you about humor as well, because I didn't pick it up on your first novel, because I've read all of your novels, obviously, because I was so intent on seeing one of the first women crime writers in Africa writing about crime. And I was so intent on the structure and what you were doing. It was, for me, it was really, really exciting. And that was the 30th, but the book where you started to write about with humor was recommended by Futi Nchingira. And he said, of the 30th Candle, humor, it is absolutely outstanding. In fact, I think I've got his comment here right at the very beginning of the book. And he says, from an author who has a wicked sense of humor comes a skillfully written must-read for any woman who winces at the idea of celebrating the big 3-0, or for any man who still seeks the answer to the eternal question, oh, what do women really want?
I got the question.
Well, for some of those men, I suppose their wish was, to be allowed to stay alive. But that's another. But I mean, when were you consciously aware of humor, of writing humor?
You know that even with Red Ink, the funny thing was, I was aware that I'm writing a thriller, and I did try to inject humor, because I think humor is it's my best medicine. That's just who I am. That's how I banter with people. That's how I relate with people. And so I did attempt to inject some humor into that very dark novel. And I think a lot of people miss it. And I actually remember being disappointed that nobody ever points out the humor in the book. People were talking about how terrifying it is, how thrilling it is. And I was waiting for just that one person to say, you know, and I enjoyed the bits of humor in between. But it's always been, I think, part of my, I don't know, my offering, I would say, as a writer, because that is my personality. And so with 30th Candle, because it was such a departure from the dark themes in red ink, I really was free to actually just, you know, have a bit of fun. And it's about women, it's about relationship, it's about things that we all can relate to, day-to-day things, not serial killers chasing people down, you know, the corridors and whatnot. So I had a lot of fun with that. And I suppose the humor has become much more palpable as I gain a bit of confidence as a writer. And the thing is, I am drawn to some dark themes. I mean, there's probably dark themes in all of them, even the ones that appear on the surface to be really light and kind of, you know, more social commentary, more topical, but there's still a bit of darkness there because, like I'm saying, I've grown up, I've spoon-fed myself on thrillers since I was probably around, 13, when I was aware what I love as a reader, when I became like a proper avid reader. And so I don't think I'm going to depart from that anytime soon. But that's why I actually think that it's difficult at this point for me to categorize myself as to what kind of a writer am I, because I'm not, I don't, at this point, for instance, I don't know what category this falls under, because it's a murder mystery. There's a big kind of meta plot that drives this book, the narrative. But then at the same time, it's also about love and marriage and long-term relationships and the follies and the foibles and you know, and the fun that comes with being in a long-term relationship. So it's all of that in one book. So I don't know what we call this type of book.
I don't know. You need to categorize yourself, because I think you are, I mean, I don't think you've got a category, but if there was one, it is a humorous crime writer. And I mean, you were on this of those six, a short list of those six women comedic writers in the United Kingdom.
The United Kingdom, yeah, the Comedy Women in Print Prize. So yes, that I think also bolstered my confidence to see myself as a comedy writer, because I don't think that comedy is something that we emphasize here in South Africa. I think we expect it from books that are set out to be satirical novels or satirical nonfiction, satirical fiction pieces that talk about our politics mostly. So I think humor is something that as South Africans, we've not really, especially from a literary point of view, that we've not really focused on that much. So maybe, as I guess now there's room to also kind of grow that space and kind of have fun a bit, because we are quite a burdened country.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about, must clarify, we're talking about murder as an entertainment. We're not talking about the real thing, you know, how
no, we're not talking about the real thing.
But I mean, I think that you're a comedic crime writer. There are not many of them. I think you stick with that. So let's stick with the book that was the funniest of them all initially, and that was The Blessed Girl. And I started laughing almost right at the very beginning, because I do look forward to you know, an Angela Makholwa novel now, because I know I'm going to get value for money. And The Blessed Girl was so damn funny. But I do remember at the outset saying to you, what is a blesser? I thought it might be a priest, you know, nominate Filius et Spiritus Sancti.
You got the shock of your life when you realized how wrong you were, how very far you were actually from the actual definition. So the UK, so the overseas market, I suppose, was fortunate, because right from the get-go, we had a little glossary of a definition of terms. So we had blesser, we had blessy, we had moreki, and we explained all of those terms. So I guess that actually settled any kind of possible misunderstandings of what that term could possibly mean.
But I mean, you must have enjoyed writing that, because there was such a poignancy to it. You just knew that she was going to run out of love and support and everything, that there was a tragedy in the way. And that was the what kept me absolutely riveted in between my laughter.
You were concerned for
Yeah,
her
yeah,
fate. Yeah. Look, to be okay. So with The Blessed Girl, I remember having these debates with my editor about what it is that I want as an outcome, and I have had a lot of feedback that her ultimate fate was a bit too harsh. But and I don't know what it is that actually drove me to this with The Blessed Girl. I guess it's because I saw this culture kind of
yeah,
growing just around me, all around me. And I am surrounded by a lot of young women, young, vibrant, intelligent, beautiful women. And I guess for me, it was really curious that this is a lifestyle that people are consciously choosing, and they're doing it with pride. And a lot of people felt affirmed by it. But I suppose, you know, as an artist and as an observer, you always have a conscious kind of interrogation of what's happening around you. And so I had that concern. I had an almost, I don't know, motherly concern, like, that is this really who we becoming, who young women are becoming? Is this what they're choosing? And so I always admit that I did start from a point of judgment, which is why it was so important for me immediately to write, to make the decision to write from a first person perspective. Because when you know that you're a bit judgy as an artist who's trying, especially as a writer, the one thing you want to do is to remove that judgment as much as you can. Because when we mirror lives, when we mirror people's authentic lives as much as we can, it's important not to bring our prejudices or our preconceived ideas of what that person or that life or that culture is until we can really walk in those shoes. So I'm glad I actually did that. I think that's where also the humor kind of helped me to develop this character into somebody who's believable, somebody that you love, you hate, you end up not even knowing whether you love her or hate her. You don't know if you want to slap her or you want to give her a hug. Do you know? and that's exactly what ended up happening with a lot of the readers. And that's why I think a lot of readers were like, how could you do this to her? I've had to cancel people about that ending. I've had to cancel them, offer them proper counseling.
Well, listen, I mean, let's now talk about the book that has just come out. And of course, it is, I think it's quite the prettiest cover of yours, critical but stable. And here you get to know almost from the beginning the Msibis, the Manamelas and the Jiyas. But there is a slightly, you tease people right from the very first page of the novel. It's not even a prologue, but just for anybody who is listening, and I know there are a lot of you, it starts with the body. And it reads, he stares at her quiet, peaceful face. So much love in that face, so much passion. This woman embodies everything he has ever envisioned love to be. She's caring, intelligent, sensual, sensuous, a beautiful person inside and out. Looking at her now, that body, underneath those covers, that body's the same. So everybody knows right from the very beginning that there's a body, but you don't know how, you don't know who, and you don't know when. So you set the scene for the novel. And every time, you know, when I was introduced to the Msibis, to the Manamelas and the Jiyas, I was thinking, okay, whose body, who was the man, who was the bloke? And I'm trying to work it out. Of course, I can't work it out because all of them are members of this Khula Society, which is investment with glitzy benefits, and everybody competes against the other. What came through to me so much was this competitive, it was not keeping up with the Joneses, but it was just keeping up with themselves. It was so ruthlessly competitive beneath the smiling faces and the diamonds.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and already I've had a lot of people saying, goodness, this gave me pause to think about the lifestyle. What am I chasing? And I think also being in this, like being in the eye of the storm, which is COVID-19, has forced a lot of us to reassess our priorities. And I always talk about, so a lot of my books are reflections on the Black middle class, because it's a middle class that has emerged out of very, I suppose, unusual. I mean, this country is unusual in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of unusual kind of backdrop to where that got the Black middle class to where we are now. So a lot of the wealth, for instance, I don't want to say it was instantaneous, because that obviously takes away from a lot of people's hard work. But because of the policies of our country, our government's policies, there is that sense of people kind of shooting through the societal structures very quickly, very rapidly. And because of that, because there's a lot of new money, then that's where some of the competitiveness comes from. So there's a lot of one-upmanship that happens. And there's this need, like this real need to actually show that I have made it, I have arrived, and I can afford all of these things. And if Jenny next door can afford a Mercedes-Benz, then I can afford a Lamborghini. And you know about the Lamborghinis in this novel. And it's an interesting phenomenon, because always at the back of your head, when you see this rush, this mad race, the big question is where is it headed, and how does it end? How does it end? Does it end with a happy ending? Which of course it does for a lot of people. But because of the ruthlessness of the chase, it means that sometimes people chase things that don't really serve their hearts, like that don't really serve their souls, don't really serve what they really want in life. And it's a reflection on, this novel is a reflection on that phenomenon. It's just a meditation on what is happening right now.
But it's also funny. So when there's a husband who's been kept waiting for his wife. For every time they go out, it takes her 1.5 to 2 hours to get ready. He is going insane with boredom. And then the first time she's getting dressed to go out, she comes down the stairs and she said, "Do you like it?" And he thinks, "Oh, it hasn't taken 1.5 hours. Yeah, I love it." She said, "Fantastic, I'm going to wear it next Saturday." And then she goes back upstairs. And he does
you forget to mention that he actually sits down, because they've been married for about 27 years. He sits down while he's waiting for her to get ready, and he takes out his phone calculator app, and he starts calculating, okay, we've been married for 27 years, so 27 times 100 events that we've been to times 1.5 hours of waiting over this period of time. And he realizes that the cumulative effect of all that waiting is a grand total of 5 months. Like if you were to sit down and calculate all of these hours, they amount to 5 months of waiting, just waiting.
No, 27 years.
Yes, they've been married for 27 years, remember?
27 years. I've read the novel. No, not 5 months, 27 years he's got the same. And then the worst thing of all, a wife opens her office PC and she sees 2 words that brings dread to everybody, because she's got to hide it. And it says final demand. And that means, does it mean the house in Zimbabwe? Does it?
Not the Zimbabwe one, please.
Does it mean the Lamborghini? Does it mean the children's school fees? So you're on tenterhooks with that. You're on tenterhooks with the girl who keeps getting dressed and undressed and tormenting her husband. It's very, very clever. And I would just, and I keep waiting, of course, for the denouement, but I would like to take a couple of questions, because I think the time has come. Have we got any questions? because no questions. Okay, well, listen, I know that there are lots of you listening, so we can just go on for a couple of minutes. So let's go on with this story, because I think it is so now. I think it is possibly more Joburg than Cape Town. And I don't know whether I'm right with that, am I? Because for me, it just screams Joburg.
Yes, well, Joburg does have a different pace. I mean, everything seems to happen here, especially from the point of view of the pace of things, the cars that we see on our roads, the places that people choose to be seen at, and it seems like it's a very conscious decision of where they want to be seen at and which addresses they want to be associated with. So I don't know if Cape Town is a little bit more laid back, you know. There's less, for instance, emphasis, especially on designer labels. I feel like the emphasis on designer labels is a bit more subdued in Cape Town. Mm-hmm. But yeah, but it is a thing. It's a thing.
So let's just as we end off about this book, and I hope that we've tempted everyone to go out.
Comments, ignoring people's comments while we're reading them. I see comments on the screen.
Oh, I don't
responding to them, Eileen.
There are comments, but no questions.
Okay, there are no questions. Okay.
There's mostly comments. I see.
I'm ready for the questions because I'm going to relay them. So this is from Khadi and Tateko Mbazi. To all panelists, we will get to see your books somewhere or other. So I think we're going to wait for the questions, but while we're doing that, we can't wait too long.
We get to see your books. She says, will we get to see your books in a movie? Jenny, how many times have I been asked this question since you've known me?
And have you?
Yes. Look, I think almost all of these books have been optioned. Let me think. Almost all of them have been optioned, but the thing with the South African film and I suppose television industry is that funding is a big obstacle for a lot of producers. So Red Ink has, for instance, been optioned, and then the option ran out. Black Widow Society is definitely, that's the one that I can guarantee that we will be seeing something in the near future, in the not too distant future. So yes, I think I owe it to my readers now to adopt the wait and see approach. It will happen, but it will take its own time, and we just wait for it to unfold, you know, as it happens. Yeah.
So the lightest thing about Zimbali, there was this no holds barred party. I mean, it was very funny as well. And it was absolutely spectacular. And of course, for good measure, there were two homosexuals. So they were laughter bait, I felt, and they were very funny. I mean, they were white. So it was, it was very funny. So I've got some quick questions for you, okay? Because we're going to run out of time if we're not careful.
And we've got 4 questions as well on the side. I've seen them. Okay.
Q&A function.
Okay, no, I am not. Oh, okay, hang on a second.
I see Vuyelwa. Hi, Angela. My question to you is, when did you start writing, and was it your plan to be an author, or was it just a hobby that turned into you being such an amazing writer? Okay, I saw that. I've got that one.
Okay, let's answer that.
Okay, so let's answer that. Was it my plan? It was actually, strangely enough, since I was 13. I decided when I was 13, I think, when did Mandela come out of prison? The day, I know this sounds very romantic and I don't know, but I remember the day that Mandela came out of prison. I was about 13 or 14. And I remember taking a walk. I'm from Tembisa. I used to like taking walks, like this kid from the township who takes little walks around the block. And I kept on, and I was thinking, this is new. Like, this means that now I can actually be whatever I want to be. So what do I want to be? And I remember thinking consciously that what I want to do one day is to write. Okay, I called it, I'm embarrassed because, like, I don't think I can write this, but I decided I want to write the great South African novel. So yes, it has been a lifelong dream. And next question is, what is your creative process
Yes,
like? Which
great.
part was somewhat difficult to write in this book? Oh my goodness, I'm happy for that question because I really battled with this book. So initially I wanted it to be kind of not a who done it, but a who got done, because we start with a dead body and we don't know whose body it is. So at first I wrote it as this kind of very suspenseful thriller. But because I had these three couples kind of driving narrative, it was difficult to find the perfect medium between the crime and this developing story around these three couples' marriages. Because Critical but Stable, you've got the ring there. It's about marriage as well. So I battled with that quite a fair bit. And we literally got to a point where I had to chunk out a huge portion of the suspenseful thriller part of the novel because it was just not working. I couldn't have it both ways. I had to kill one of my babies and my darling. So the darling that I had to kill was the big suspense, and so I had to bring in that thread of the novel in more subtle ways, but then keep the focus on the social commentary around marriage and the couples and the materialism and the writtenness and the glitz and competitiveness and keeping up with the Khumalo's thread of the novel.
Angela, I want you to, because we're running out of time, I want you to answer Ndegwa Nguru's question. Angela, I have a question. Do you ever get terrified of your twisted mind while you pen your thrillers?
LOLs at that. Yeah, I terrified myself a lot with red ink, and it's because obviously it was my debut novel and it was based on kind of real events that I had encountered. I had had encounters with a real life serial killer, and I had intended to write his life story. I'm not going to get into all of that backstory, but yeah, long story short, I intended to write his story. And because he's a psychopath and he was in prison and I was used to visit him to get notes on the novel, obviously, so then it didn't work out, me writing his biography. However, I decided to fictionalize our encounters. And so everything that I put Lucy through, who's the main character, in a way, I was kind of projecting what my worst fears were when I was interacting with this man who had killed more than 40 people, most of them women. So I absolutely terrified myself with that novel. But the rest, the only thing I think disturbs me is why I have this kind of mind. Am I okay? Is everything okay with me? But other than that, I'm fine.
And Dawn Denton says, what are you most proud of about this book?
The layers. I think it's the most layered book I've written thus far.
The most sophisticated.
What's that?
The most
sophisticated. My daughter said to my mom that she wants to write my 8-year-old daughter said she wants to write a sophisticated book. So I'm glad that I finally wrote a sophisticated book. Yes, so I'm happy. I really took time to explore, especially threads of the novel that I didn't really, themes that I wasn't that familiar with. So I actively went out to talk to people, to police, for instance, to lawyers, to spiritual, traditional healers, because there's even some hints on those kind of themes. So I'm happy that I am very proud that I actually took a lot of time to really drill down on the kind of territory that I don't understand, to make sure that I speak to people who know better than me about such things. So yeah, that is the thing with this book.
Let's go to Unati, who is an old colleague of mine from 702 when I was on 702. Not a question, but a comment. I've read all your books again, Angela. So brilliant. And I concur with Jen, who is, of course, a brilliant host. Thank you, darling. I will always buy your books because they are that good. I'm never disappointed, always. If I were to box you, you are a comedic crime writer. Well, that's what I've said.
Yes, that's what you said. Yes, I got myself a label at last.
Right, I tell you, there are very few of them. It's a lovely description of what you do, and also you make people laugh, but you're waiting for the knife, and because you know it's going to come. And Ndegwa, again, another question from him. He can't stop himself. I also want to know, after the publication of your debut, Red Ink, how has your process of writing been affected thanks to publishing?
How it's affected thanks to publishing? It hasn't really been affected that much because how I interact with my publishers is that, yes, they will say, are you working on something? But if I don't have anything, if there's nothing that compels me to sit down and put pen to paper, I say, I have nothing. I can't do anything, because my writing will always come from a place of inspiration. So if the inspiration is not there, nothing's going to happen. And so I wouldn't say it's changed drastically because of publishing. And a lot of people, and the thing is, now there's a lot of self-publishing that's going on, which is great. But the thing is, with working with a publisher, and I have a full-time job and a husband and children and a dog and all these things and life. So yeah, so for me at this point anyway in my life, it works well because I can focus on the writing and be done with the writing, and then I can hand it over for them to focus on distribution and all these other things. So yeah, it hasn't really affected me because I still work at my own pace, which is the only way I can work.
Final question, I think. This comes from Tondarai Chindiko.
Hi.
Do you know him?
Yes, I do.
All right. Well, the aspirations of the so-called black middle to upper class seem to be the central theme of the book. No guessing. Is this a fair assessment? And at what cost does this scenario perpetuate inequalities in society as everyone, especially black people, jostle to live the Instagram life? Quite like that Instagram life.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing, so it's a very good question, because I remember I started writing it, and I remember sitting at I think I'd taken my mom to the optometrist or ophthalmologist, and I was sitting and I saw this Time magazine cover, and it was talking about South Africa and how the divide, we've got the biggest Gini coefficient in the world, and we've got the biggest divide between rich and poor, basically. And it sparked something in me, the realization that, as much, so whenever, and I think it's an important learning for me, that you can't write about the black middle class without reflecting on what's happening to the majority of South Africans, which is, perpetual poverty. It seems the divide is growing bigger and bigger. And so it was important for me to bring out that aspect of what happens to the person, the security guard or the domestic worker who is coming into this world temporarily for those brief moments and witnessing this opulence and, this kind of high life, and then going back to their lives where they're dealing with so much that is starkly different to the lives that they witness on a day-to-day basis. And that's why I brought in issues like big issues right now, issues of xenophobic attacks, because a lot of the domestic workers, especially now, are non-South Africans. And there's a big issue around how foreigners are taking our jobs. And there's a spate of violence that's being perpetuated against fellow Africans that are here in this country that are also trying to eke out a living. And so this book, that's why I'm saying this book is much more layered than glamour and glitz and all of that, it was important to me to look at those issues and to reflect on the impact that it has, and what do we do about that, and is there anything we can do about it, and also just to take seriously the grievances of people who are saying, yes, I see you living your fine life, but I'm not living that life, and I don't think I'm ever going to get there anytime soon. So that's why I'm so angry. So listen to me, I'm angry, and I need you to understand that this is what is frustrating me. So I've tried to kind of counterbalance all of that against how the other side lives.
Okay, I'm going to give you, as we draw to a close, we've still got to give away our 3 books. I'm going to announce that, a couple of other things as well, but some quick questions for you, Angela. And you've got to answer immediately. No thinking.
Oh,
a love
no.
novel, or a crime novel?
Excuse me?
A love novel or a crime novel?
Crime, of course.
High heels or bunion-free flatties?
High heels but I've got a backache. I'm getting old, but high heels until I can make it.
Zimbali or the Bahamas?
The Bahamas.
Leon Mayer or Karen Slaughter?
Karen Slaughter. Oh my gosh. Okay, both.
No, you don't. You can't have both.
I love Leon Mayer. Now I'm feeling guilty, but I love Karen Slaughter.
No, she's wicked. She's wicked. There's no question. Leon Mayer is just the most cuddleable crime writer on this planet. Black and pearls or color and diamonds?
Color and diamonds.
How many books are you reading at this very minute?
2. I'm reading. So I've just finished the book that I told you about, The Wicked Sister. I started, what is it? The Theory of Flight. Is it The Theory of Flight?
By Superior Gloria and Lovo.
Yes. And I've never been like this. I'm actually very unhappy with myself because I actually think I've got 4 books on rotation at the moment. 4 books that I'm reading at the same time. And so, which is not the way to go. So I think I need a reading holiday. I need to block off about a week because I'm a very fast reader as well. That's why I can never remember authors' names, because I finished this one and messed up the other one and so on. But yeah, I'm reading about 4 books right now.
Well, listen, let me just give away these books. So I want to thank everybody, most of all, of course, Angela, and we'll get to that in a second. But thank you for your questions and your comments, because it does add another layer to, I love it when we get the questions. I honestly and truly do.
And I'm sorry to all the people that I see, there's still so many questions, and I'm really sorry that we couldn't be able to go through all of them.
Yes, well, we're doing another one together on Saturday.
Yes, on Saturday. So if you feel that you're happy, you can join us on Saturday.
Also, please look forward to Pan's email, because you will all be emailed with a link to the recording and details of where you can buy your copy, for instance. And the lucky draw, the 3 winners of signed copies of Angela's novel. And you will be, I know you're going to sign them, and you'll be emailed to arrange delivery. And the winners are, Rafilwe Matsi, I think it is, Dora Bakaba, and Watermelon. So congratulations to all 3 of you. Sit back and wait for Eileen to contact you, which will be tomorrow. So everybody, thank you. And Angela, what a lovely interview. And you just keep adding depths to what I know about you. And I do think critical but stable. And when I must make it quite clear, when I said it is your most sophisticated book, I wasn't talking about high heels. I was talking about the quality of your writing, the quality of plotting, and everything. I think it's an absolute winner. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody as well for logging in.
And thank you to Pan.
Yes. And for Pan Macmillan. Thank you.